Hi, we're on day 3 of our 25 Days of Christmas devotional, and it is called The Masterpiece. When reading the book of Matthew or Luke, it's tempting to skip over the long list of names found in the early chapters. After reading them, after reading 3 or 4 names in one of those lists, you may feel your eyes start to glaze over. Get to the good part, you may be thinking. These long family trees may not seem as interesting as the familiar stories about the shepherds and the wise men. But every word of the Bible is from God. So if he thought it was important for us to know who is in Jesus' family tree, we need to pay attention. To understand why the genealogies listed in Matthew and Luke are important, think of the story of Jesus as you would a huge painting or mosaic. A masterpiece by a master artist, like the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Vatican City. Michelangelo took 4 years to complete the huge work, and only when viewed from a distance, from the floor of the chapel, can the scale and scope of the full work be appreciated. In the same way, when we look at the big picture of Christmas, we can appreciate the thousands of years and millions of tiny brushstrokes God used to complete the masterpiece of the birth of Christ. Matthew presents Jesus as the Messiah, a figure the Jews had been told would be the king. Unlike a president, a king does not come to rule by ballot, but by birth. A king has to prove his right to the throne by proving he is descended from a royal family. God had revealed that the Messiah's right to rule would be proven by 3 things. He would come from the family of Abraham, and it tells about that in Genesis 22:18. He would come from the tribe of Judah, from Genesis 49:10, and he would come from the house of David. That's in 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 and 13. Now you can see why God thought it was important for us to see those names in Jesus' family tree. They demonstrate his legal right to the throne. But the genealogies reveal even more than that. Jesus' legal right to rule came through Joseph, but the Bible makes clear that the Messiah would be a descendant of David. As Joseph's adopted son, Jesus was a legal descendant, but not a descendant of David by birth. Just so that there would be no doubt at all about Jesus' claim to the throne, God told Luke to include the other side of his genealogy, his mother's side, which can also be traced back to David through one of his other sons. Jesus was physically born of Mary, so her genealogy shows us that he was a literal descendant of David as well as a legal descendant. God didn't leave 1 square inch of his canvas unfinished. He didn't use one brushstroke too many or too few, but just the right strokes and just the right colors to create the masterpiece of the birth of Christ. All right, would you pray with me? Dear Father, thank you for being the master artist who arranges our lives the same way you arranged Jesus' claim to the throne. Help us to trust that you are always working to place us exactly where you want us in the masterpiece you're creating. Okay, I have to look up 2 verses tonight. The first is Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 through 17. And the second is Luke chapter 3, verses 23 through 38. And your activity tonight is that you are going to decide as a family on a subject for a group art project. You're going to pick a simple object or an animal whose parts can be assigned to a members of the family. For example, you can choose an elephant, and one of you draws the trunk, one of you draws the tail, one of you draws the body, one of you draws the ear. A tree can be divided into branches or trunk or roots or leaves. You're going to decide who is going to draw or paint each part of the picture, but don't discuss any other details about the picture, such as how big it will be or what color it'll be. On separate pieces of paper, everyone draws or paints their individual part of the picture. When everyone is finished, try to assemble your picture using all the separate pieces to make the whole. How did you do? You might have created a pretty decent picture of your object, or you might have created a monster. What does this exercise teach us about the big picture of our lives? All right, I will see you again tomorrow night. Bye.